It is 9 o'clock on the West Coast. It is 5 o'clock in the UK, if I got that right, Sue.
You have got that
All
right.
right, there we go. I
5 o'clock.
feel so international right now. So welcome everyone to the Thursday, July 25th edition, and I've actually got the day right today, which is nice, of the Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel User Group Meetup. Good morning to everyone that's on the West Coast. Good evening to everyone who's coming in from Europe. Afternoon to those of you in between. We've got a great session coming up today, but before we dive into that, I just want to go through our normal that we do here, and thank our sponsors and all the things that we normally do. So we're going to start off with that. Big thanks to Skillwave for making this possible. If you're not familiar with Skillwave.training, it is the training company that I run with Matt Allington, where we try and teach you to be awesome in Excel and Power BI. We've got a ton of great courses there, really high level stuff that you should definitely check out. It will make you a better analyst. Excel Guru is the parent company of Skillwave, my company as well, and also the distributor and developer of the Monkey Tools add-in for Excel, which helps you build better data models faster in Excel. Our next meetups that we have coming up, our next Excel meetup is going to be on August 8th. We'll be at our normal 5 p.m. Pacific time, and we're going to be welcoming David Fortin from Montreal, who is going to be joining us to talk about modern Excel with Microsoft Copilot. So if you're interested in how Microsoft's working with the AI side of things, this will be a great session to learn a little bit about that. Our next Power BI / Excel track, we're going to be welcoming Alejandra Horvath. She is going to be again at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and we're going to be talking about using M in Power Query and data transformation. So I love me some good Power Query. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic session as well. We're looking forward to that. Both of these are now open for RSVPs. Do note on these ones that we are back to our regular 5 p.m. Pacific time for these. To just let people know, if they didn't catch this in the last meetup, I just recently released a new free course on using Monkey Tools. I got a lot of feedback from people over the years that, hey, Ken, the software is awesome. It does so many things, but I really haven't got a clue all the things it does. So I said, all right, cool. You know what? It's time. So we built up this course. You get lifetime access to the videos. We give you examples, files to download and play around with it. And you can download, of course, a free version of Monkey Tools to try some of these things out. We do cover all the free and the pro features inside there. But if you're interested, you can sign up for free at the URL that I'm showing here. And remember, all these slides are already posted for download on the Meetup site. What's new in Monkey Tools? Our latest public release that I'm talking about right now is July 5th. This is where we release some calendar monkey updates. You can now have a culture choice for your calendar, meaning that you can get your month and day names in the language that you actually use. We also allow you to control your short periods for this. So if you are in somewhere like, I don't know, maybe Quebec, and you need French month names, you can now have control to shorten them to 4 characters, so there's no confusion between June and July. If you happen to be in, say, Finland, you can also use negative numbers to actually trim from the end so that you're, knocking the KUU off the end of every month. So there's a lot more functionality there for international users. We also have done some drastic updates to our import and export monkey. We can now import measures. We've done a lot of bug fixes and design changes in this as I was recording the videos to make it work more naturally, because I wasn't happy with the way that it was in place. All of these all of these are in the latest version of the program that you can download. And again, remember, we also have the ability now to see this free course. There is now a menu item on the Help Monkey that will actually take you directly there as well. So definitely check out Monkey Tools if you haven't, and check out the course to learn why you actually want it, because believe me, it will save you some time. Coming up on August 15th is the next kickoff date for my Excel Fundamentals Academy. If you have someone in your organization, or maybe yourself, want to upskill, I have a very complete course here which talks about Excel functions and formulas, pivot tables, data visualizations, Power Query, giving you all of the cool things that you need to be able to actually set the groundwork to move into more advanced Excel skills in the future. There's about 30 hours of training and coaching here. You get access to my Ask Ken sessions, which we do once every 2 weeks, live sessions for answering questions and whatnot, as well as a bunch of other things as well. So you should definitely check that out for you or someone else in your organization. If you feel you already know your pivot tables, my most technical training course that I run is my self-service BI Academy. That also kicks off on August 15th. And this has a ton of stuff in it, including access to my books, recipe cards, Monkey Tools software. We give you a pro license there, all of our material and things as well. So it's a pretty powerful session here. I've got students I know that are in the chat here that can tell you that they really enjoy it. And I hope that some more of you will join me there. This meetup, along with every meetup, is recorded and will be posted on the Skillwave YouTube channel. Just be aware it does take me 24 to 48 hours to get this up and posted. But once it's available, we do post on the meetup group to let you know, so you'll get a notification when it's ready to watch. The last thing that I want to sign off with on this one here is that if you know someone or you have a topic that you want to talk about and share with the group here, we are always looking for people to speak at upcoming meetups. Just fill out the little survey here. We'll get in contact with you and we'll get you on our stage. And that, for me, is my bit. Joseph, are you ready for what's new in Power BI?
Let's do it.
What are we? July 2025 edition, right? There we go. 2024. I'm ahead of myself by a whole year. Wow.
Man, you got one date right. You didn't
tell me about the future, Joseph. Tell me about the future. All right, buddy. The floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Ken. And yeah, welcome everybody to the July 2024 edition of What's New in Power BI. As always, I like starting with the Microsoft blog post of the feature summary for the current month. And as we can see by the date here, we've had 2 weeks with it now. That has flown by. Usually we get just a day or a couple of hours. As always, the blog post is broken into different sections. So usually I like focusing on the reporting section, just because I feel that that's relevant to the most amount of users. But right now, for this month, the only reporting update has been reference layers in Azure Maps, which is kind of cool if you're using Maps, and particularly Azure Maps a lot. But my two favorite features from this month that I'm going to focus this quick session on is actually in this modeling section. The general availability of the enhanced row-level security editor. I was playing around with that the other day, and I think that's really cool. It makes row-level security easier. So I'll do a quick little demo just to see what's new with that. And then the DAX query view. So if you've been coming to these meetup groups for the last few months, you know a lot of my what's new has been focused on this DAX query view, just because it's really revolutionized my workflow in Power BI developing DAX measures. And we have two updates for that. The ability to use DAX query view with a live connect to a model, and then the ability to add or update multiple measures at the same time. And even in the last 2 weeks, this multiple measures is just improved my life dramatically. It's made my development process a lot easier doing DAX measures. So I'll jump in and we'll see what that looks like. But starting with the row level security, just jumping to this section of the blog here. If you do use row level security, previously we've done it a lot in DAX, like how we define DAX measures. We would sort of be defining our row level security that way, and we still have the ability to do that. But now we also have the typical sort of Power BI clicky, draggy, droppy way, the dialog box to do that. If you want to learn more about row level security, I do recommend checking out the documentation here. If you're just not familiar with the concept, or you're not sure how to set it up, or it's something that you want to do for your organization, this is a really good documentation and blog post in Power BI. Highlights where you can find it in the desktop app, the reasons you'd want to set it up, and how you can set it up. But with that, why don't we jump into my demo report and we'll see exactly what that looks like. So I have this demo report page. I use it every month to demo some of the new features in Power BI. And a use case for row level security is if we have something like executives or different line managers in our organization, and maybe we only want some users just to see a subset of the data available to us. Like down here by product category, we have like borrowing, deposit, and insurance. And maybe we only want insurance managers to see the insurance information, the borrowing managers to see the borrowing information, etc. So that's something we can set up with row level security. So we can start setting that up by going to the modeling tab on the ribbon. And in this security section up here at the top, we have two options. We have manage roles and view as. So I'm going to start with manage roles. And this is the new part of the row level security editor in Power BI. So we have the ability just really easily to set up new roles and to define rules from a drop-down rule set. So we see I've already have one set up here, my role, and we can set up these rules through these drop-down menus. We select the table from our data model, and then that allows us to select columns from that table to set up rules for. So for example, if I wanted to say only show users in this role, in my role, where client type is equal to golden, or we could say where client type is equal to youth, or any of the categories that we have in our data set. We can just define it this way, as I say, just expanding, typing in, clicky, draggy, droppy. And we can also define, I think this is a cool feature, we want to show data for users in this role if it meets all of the criteria of our rules or just any of the rules are met. So we get that and or logic from the drop-down box. So I can set up a new role, and let's rename this. This could be like borrowing manager. And then from the product table, maybe I want a new rule where the product category is equal to borrowing. Then any users in that category can only see information when that column is equal to borrowing. We still have the ability to switch to a DAX view as well of this row level security editor. So if I click the switch to DAX editor button, we can see that this product category equals borrowing. How we defined it in sort of like the dialog pane, we can also see how that was defined with DAX as well. So we still have the ability just to type in DAX if that's what we're comfortable with and what we want to do. And in fact, if we do want to use row level security specific DAX functions like username, does that come up? Username or user principal name. We actually do have to use this DAX editor view to do that as well. We can't do that in the new default editor view. So it's just a quick overview of row level security. So now I've set up that borrowing manager. I'm going to save that. We get the note successfully applied the role change. If I close out of there. And now if we want to test the view that we just created in the security section on the ribbon again, we can go to that view as tab. And all of the roles that we have set up for our row level security are here. So if I click that borrowing manager and hit OK, we can see now we're only seeing where the product category is equal to borrowing. And this is like a little preview of our report of users within that row level security group, what that will look like, how they'll see the report. So we can do some testing natively within the desktop app. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm just going to stop viewing that. So that was what's new with the row level security editor in Power BI. Big improvement, nice little interface. So let's move on to the DAX query view. So this is the new, well, not really new-ish fourth view in the Power BI desktop app. And what we're able to do now is we're able to update define and update multiple measures in our model at the same time. So this could be if I have like my fact table here, we have total balance, and I can just use a quick query, define and evaluate. So I can see it defines the measure for me. We define our measure on our fact table, total balance. It's a simple measure. It's just equal to the sum of a column. And then we evaluate that measure. So if I run that, we can see the results down here. I'm just going to delete this evaluate part for now. But if we want a new measure, let's say, why don't we have like a client balance? So if I say, let's say total balance, but I want it to be for like youth clients. So I can just wrap our, let's actually wrap our total balance measure. And I just want to say where our client age, is it client age? Client segment, there, client segment is equal to youth. Just like that. We've always had the ability, now that I've defined a new measure, we've had the ability up to now to update model with a new measure. I can just click in line and it will add it to my fact table. And we have a new button up here that says update model with changes. But what's cool now is if I just copy and paste this below, and rather than youth client, if I wanted like regular client, and I can just update the code here. Now I can still click inline and just add these measures as we go through, but I also have the ability to update model with changes, and we see that we've defined 2 measures here. So if I click this button and it says, are you sure? And I am sure. I want to update my model. And if we look at our fact table over here on the right-hand side, we now have total balance regular client, total balance youth client. So if you find yourself going into your fact table and like right-clicking new measure, and then you're typing it out and you sort of copy-pasting code and going through, you can now just do that all within this DAX query view. You can copy paste your code. Like I just created 2 measures really quickly there. If I needed to do this for every client segment, so if I had like a high cardinality and I needed measures here, and you weren't using calculation groups, it's really easy just to copy paste code, update it, and then update all those measures, publish them all to your model at the same time. And just the last quick thing that this does, which I think is really cool, and this was actually called out in the DAX query blog post from the feature summary for this month, is one of the quick queries from the table view of the data model is you can define all measures in this table, which is what I've done here. So these are all the measures in my table. I'm just going to remove this evaluate part. Now I can format my query. So all of my measures have been reformatted. We have this nice formatting that we can read it as opposed to it being all just on one line. And now when I can go back and I can publish these changes to my model. And if I go back into my report view and look at like clients 2019, if I zoom in a little bit, we can see we now have a nicely formatted measure. So as we're developing our measures, we can go through, and if we inherit like a legacy report or anything, we can go and we can clean up all measures from a single table all at once, format them, publish them back, and now we can actually read what's going on with our DAX measures. So that's what's new for the DAX query view this month. I covered the row level security. Those are my 2 favorite features for July. A little bit of a short update this month, but I think that will wrap it up for me today. And I'm happy to pass it back to Ken, pass it back to Sue for our feature presentation for this month. So thank you, everyone. And I'm looking forward to the feature presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joseph, as always, for volunteering your time doing this. Really appreciate it. And yeah, at this point in time, it's my pleasure to welcome Sue to the program. And Sue, if you want to take over the screen, the floor is yours. So
brilliant. Can you see me okay?
I can see it perfectly. You bet. So
lovely. Thank you. Well,
awesome.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Joseph. Ken, completely reiterate skill wave. I've done all the courses myself. And anyone that I come across who is an Excel user and wants to get into Power BI, I push them your way.
I very much appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Completely recommend that. And Joseph, love the summary. My favorite thing for this Power BI update is paginated reports. So you can now add a parameter in a paginated report in the service, which is really, really cool. So thank you. Anyway. Taking off with Tabular Editor. So who am I and what am I going to teach you? So my name is Sue and I'm based in the UK. So good morning to everyone in Canada and hello to everyone in the UK and Europe that are joining us, depending upon your time zone. I work as an independent Power BI developer and I run my own business. I'm a data platform MVP, and I also have my own user group in the UK, Tuesday, 6 p.m. British summertime. So for me, I'm really, really busy. I'm training for marathons, I'm working and studying, and like all of you, we have to keep up to date and with life and everything. So time is hugely important in what I do and how I manage my time. With that, just to add, I'm not employed by Tabular Editor in any way. So everything that I show you is my own personal opinion. And that's my business. So if you're interested in me, that's my business. And that's my Devon and Cornwall Power BI meetup group. So Tabular Editor, if you can just put your thumbs up if you know about it, if you've heard about it, just so I get a little rough idea, whether, just a few, whether a few of, yeah, Aurora, Ken, a few of you putting your thumbs up. So what is it? I'm going to show you what it is. I'm going to show, hey, Jack, how, thank you. I'm going to show you how much it will cost you, who uses it, why they use it, and how you get started. I'm going to do it a little bit differently today. I'm going to show you Tabular Editor 2 first, which is completely free, and then I'm going to show you Tabular Editor 3, because one of the questions I quite often get asked are, what are the differences? So first and foremost, what actually is it? It's a desktop application. So it's something that you can download and it sits on your desktop and you can use it, a bit like Power BI. And you can download Tabular Editor 2 and Tabular Editor 3. And what it does is it allows you to edit your data model. So the data within your Power BI reports or your semantic models is data, but what surrounds it is a wrapper full of metadata, which tells you, your columns, the names, how they're formatted, how they come together, where they're pulled from, what are the Power Query expressions. So it's all of the things that wrap around the data that you host in your semantic model. So just to show you where you can download it. So this is Tabular Editor 2. All of the links in this Power BI report are in my presentation, which I will give to Ken if he distributes out, or alternatively it's stored in a GitHub site that I have. So everything that I talk about and I mention, you'll be able to access at a later date. So you can basically install and download Tabular Editor here, and Tabular Editor 3 you can actually choose and you can download here, so you can see where you download these particular tools. You can use it on Fabric Premium Desktop, so you can attach to a Power BI service model, which is published to the service and attached to the endpoint, the SQL endpoint, or the Tabular Editor endpoint, and then you can attach to a desktop as well. And it allows you basically to really, really very quickly change and write measures and do all sorts of things to make your data model, your semantic model, much better. For this instance, because it's a really powerful tool, what I'm going to focus on is Power BI Desktop and basically how I use it as a developer within Power BI Desktop. So as I mentioned before, there are two options, Tabular Editor 2, which is completely free, and Tabular Editor 3, which you pay for, but you have 2 months as a free license, and there are different licenses. So you can start off with a desktop license, which is at $10 a month, through to an enterprise license of $95. And it just saves you time. So that's the thing to think about as you start working through it, is how to save time. The type of people that might use it, and I've got a couple more minutes, then I'll be going straight into a demo, are a desktop analyst like me, somebody who works on Power BI reports and semantic models, a support engineer who can attach to workspaces and actually manage models remotely, a data modeler, so someone that actually doesn't build the visual report layers but manages the data model, and a solution architect, someone that actually looks at the continuous integration and deployment site. So there's many different use cases for people that actually use Tabular Editor, and the point that I'm focusing on for this presentation is as a desktop analyst using it as an external tool. So what does it enable you to do? It enables you to automate your tasks. So when we're creating measures, you'll find that there are different measures that we use all the time, and we can create and apply these to every model using a touch of a button. It helps us rename many measures, to format many measures all in one go. So we can have batch measuring, formatting, copying, deleting, pasting. So it enables us to be very quick with our DAX and our changes. We can look at our data model and we can actually see, well, how good is it? And we can apply Microsoft's best practice rules to our model to help us see how to improve our data model. It's got a really, really good DAX IntelliSense, which helps you with your DAX code. And then it also helps us unlock some of the modeling features like calculation groups, perspectives, translations, and object level security. So it helps us at really basic looking at our data model. But for this instant, I'm going to focus on our desktop and our local model. So you can see in my screen here, I've got Tabular Editor 2 and Tabular Editor 3, and I have a data model here. So it's a very basic data model. I've got one date table, which is pulling into 3 fact tables. And you can see when you look at them, these are my fact tables, no measures within the fact table at the moment, really, really basic, and my date table. Now, when I open up Tabular Editor 2, and this is something I've downloaded from the desktop, let me just move this out of the way. When you open this up, let me just make it a bit bigger for you. You can see we've got Tabular Editors here. And the main way that we open up is we open up using this button. So we'll click, and we click on Open, and we click, and we click on Open here. And then you have the option, if you've got premium or premium per user, that you can connect to your server and you find your XML endpoint from your Power BI service, and you can attach to your model within Power BI service using this, which is actually really, really quick if you're starting to do some development. But for this instance, what we're going to focus on is we're going to be pulling in a local instance of our report. And you can see here, this is my local host, it's Garmin, and it's my model here. Any questions, please pop them in the chat, and Ken and I will be looking at them to answer as we go through, so don't worry about interrupting. So when I open up Tabular Editor, you can see it's here, and we've got our model. And this is called our TOM model. It's our tabular object model. Within our tabular object model, it shows us our relationships. So we can see the different relationships here. We can see any roles. So when Joseph was talking about when we set up our row level security, you would be able to see if I had any row level security set up, you would be able to see it here. We have shared expressions, which shows us our M code. You can see these are all our M code here. So it's really useful because you can actually see the M code within one or two windows without having to swap back and forth. So you can see anything that helps me with my M code. To see it more is always a good thing. So you can see within there. So if you're looking at something and you're trying to understand why it's doing something, I find it quite useful to actually be able to see the M code and to have it all on one screen. Or if you've got 2 screens, when I mean one screen, I don't have to go in between the desktop editor and back into there. I can pull all of these things out and place them all over the place. And then we have our tables. And so these are the tables that I had in my model. So when I click on the tables, you can see all of the data here. And what you'll notice is as I click on different things, every object has its own properties. So when I click on here, which is a marathon training, you'll see that the properties come up here and it shows me everything about my metadata of this particular table. If it's a hidden table, any properties, what the data category is, if there's any translation or perspectives or securities. Good question, Stanton. Yes, you can. You can edit the M code. It's currently part of a preview feature, so you have to make sure that you enable preview to enable it to edit the M code. So again, it's not protected, as in it's a sort of a preview feature, but you make sure that you save your model before you do anything. But I've been editing it and it's been absolutely fine. But again, always make sure you have a save of your copy.
Sue, can I throw in just a follow-up on that one there?
Yeah.
Is when you are editing your M code, what does it take to actually get Power BI to reflect that change? Does the model have to be restarted, or is it able to be edited live and applied?
Live and applied. I'm sure it's live and applied, yeah.
Really, that shocks me, because this has been a major blocking point programmatically for me for years, and every other person I've talked to is always like, "Yeah, this is the problem. It always has to be reloaded." So I'm gonna have to reach out and find out what's behind the scenes here, because that would be a massive
I
change.
think it does, Ken, but I will double check.
Yeah. All right. At any rate,
it's an unsupported feature within Tabular Editor 3.
All right, and you don't have to worry about it right now. I was just curious, because, like I say, this has been a major stumbling point for a lot of years. So if there's something that's changed there, it's one of those things that I definitely want to know about. But yeah, interesting. There you go.
Yeah, let's touch. We'll touch base on it. I've changed it. Anyway, we'll go back. So once you're looking at it, then what you can do is you can then you can actually create measures on your particular table. So here on my marathon training, what I might want to do is I might want to create a new measure. So on this one, I might want to have number of rows. And here you have to press enter in Tabular Editor 2. So you can see I've got a little sum, I've got number of rows, and then up here is where I'm going to write my DAX expression. So count rows, and I want the table name. I'm going to drop the table name in here, and then I'm going to press tick. And again, with the same, you can do the DAX formatter, so it will format it for you. So, if you've got some really heavy DAX code, it will format it for you. And just what I want to draw your attention to is this little star, this little question mark. So what that means is that it's been written, but it hasn't actually been applied to your model yet, because it's on the metadata. So you then press save, and it saves the changes back to the connected database. So you press save, and then when I look at my Power BI report, you'll see it's there straight away. The measure is there straight away. So what we can do is we can then create many different measures and do batch forecasting to look at those measures and then see and then apply them without having to do it each time and then having to apply them. So we might want to actually count the number of rows, and then what I might want to do is I might want to say, well, actually, I want to copy this, or I want to paste it, or I might want to use a calculate. So on here, on summarized activities, I might want to count the number of rows on here. So what you can do within Tabular Editor, there's a C# script. So in the same way within DAX, we have within Power Query or Power BI, we have DAX and we have Power Query. Within Tabular Editor, you have DAX code, which you can use here, and you have C# scripting. So within C# scripting, you can actually create a C# script which will act as a macro throughout your entire model. So one of the things I always want to do pretty much with every table that I have or every model that I have is I want to be able to count the rows, because what we're doing is we're continuously pulling in tables. We are grouping by certain dimensions, we're aggregating, and we're counting rows, or we're summing. So we're grouping, we're filtering, we're aggregating, and count rows is something that I do in pretty much every measure. So within here, we have this C# script. And when we click on C# script, and I'm not a programmer, I'm a self-taught person. So this is something I've been able to teach myself. And there are lots and lots of different websites that you can use. And I've got links to them in the PowerPoint. So you'll be able to use them and look at them as well. So when we look at this, you can see this is written by Edgar. And it's from one of those, probably powerbi.tips is one of the sites that I use, and the logic makes sense. So it just says for each, so our for statement, our var table, so we're picking out certain tables that we're interested in, and we're saying add a new measure. So creating a variable called new measure, which is table.addMeasure, and then we're using the scripting to actually say the text is the number of rows in, plus table.name, so that's whichever table we're selected, and then we're writing count rows with the open brackets, and then we're appending the table.dax object full name, and then we're closing it. So we're basically saying count the rows in the selected table. Format string, make it 0, so we're setting the format string, and then we're putting some documentation into our actual report. So our description is telling us what this number of rows is. And this is really useful, particularly if you're using thin reports, because you're publishing your semantic model, you're putting description into each measure. And so when you hover over it, using it as a thin report, it actually tells you what the DAX is, because if you attach to a semantic model in the service, you don't see the DAX. And that is particularly useful if you're writing reporting. So this is my C# script, and so I'm just going to click on sleep, and I'm going to click on date, and then I'm going to run. And what it will do straight away is you can see it's put in rows in date, we've got rows in sleep, and we've got rows here, all with little ticks. And then when I press save, it will come back to my Power BI model, and you can see they're there straight away. So you can do as many measures as you like, and then you can save it. And when you then go to your samples, you've got it here. So the macros are saved onto your C drive. So every time you open up Tabular Editor 2, you'll have these macros here that you can use anytime that you want to use them. So I'll show you a few more things that you can do. And this is all free. Tabular Editor 2 is a completely free tool that has been developed by Daniel Ottiker, who is the technical author of Tabular Editor. And it's something he's really passionate about, is keeping it free. So what I might want to do in activity type, I might want to create a calculate to say, well, okay, what it's great having the rows, but for me, I'm particularly interested in running. So if I go here and I look at my summarized activities, you can see my table, and my activity type here is running. So when I go back to Tabular Editor, and I'll show you how to, and I click to expression editor, then what I can do is I can create a new measure, and I'm going to call it number of runs. And in here, I'm going to do calculate. And let's have rows and summarized. And then where activity type equals running. And then I press tick, and it then calculates this particular measure for me. And again, I could do this for as many measures as I like. I can then format them and then save them and send them back to my particular report. So it gives you the option to be able to batch create row, batch create measures, and to be able to copy them, and to be able to create new names and set the format string. So if we wanted to, example, select everything to be all short date, because I don't know about you, but it really annoys me that everything is in long date, and I then have to go and change them because I want short date, because I don't want long date in my report, because it just takes up time. So what you can do is you can actually filter. So there's this little button here called filter there. And within that filter, I can say, well, actually show me everything that is a column. So you can put in here object type equals column. And then if I press the filtering, it shows me all of the columns. So you think, well, that's great, but actually I want all of the columns that are dates. So you can then come through. So actually, let's just add a bit more logic into it. So show me all of the object types that are columns, and using regex where it's matched to the date. So then we go through and it shows me all of the ones, should show me all of the ones that are dates. So it's taken my model and it's looking at the names and it's just showing me where there are dates. And you can see these are all long dates. So what I can do is I can highlight using Control all of the ones that are dates. Oh, wait, let me do it in this one. Click on C# script and then say, okay, macro, make it a short date. Macro, make it a short date. And it should then go through and make it a short date. There it is, and run. 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 I bet I could actually pull the macro up and do all three at the same time. No, it's not letting me do it in that one. So there are some things that are slightly different between Tabular Editor 2 and Tabular Editor 3. So you can filter, you can pull up your dates, and then you can create some macros. The other thing that you can do is you can actually create and see the expression. So you can see, right, okay, show me all of the descriptions. So there's many different macros that you can create to enable you to, so you can ask it to, you know, the sum of every currently selected column. So you can pick up the columns that you want and you can say, right, okay, here I am. So in this summarized activities, if I just give it a date, marathon training, sleep, summarized activities, I could say, right, well, I want this one, this one, this one, maybe this one. And then you can say, right, okay, macros, let me see the sum. So that's my macro where I'm creating a sum of. Again, it's something we do all the time. We can say for each var in selected columns, summarize them, set the format string, give the description, and then hide the base column. So you can press play and you can see the macros are being created and the columns are hidden. So they're not showing up here because they're hidden. And then it's pushed back to our data model. So if we click here, then when we look in our data model, you'll see that the, and sometimes you just need to refresh, open and close it, and it will come up. It should come up anyway. There it is, sum of, sum of, sum of, sum of. And that's how you can use Tabular Editor to batch create measures, to filter, to create your, to look at your model, to change the formatting of your model. One of the things that you can't do easily within Tabular Editor 2 is to see your data. But what you can do is you can write DAX, which is evaluated within C# scripts. So we have our C# script here, and I'm just going to get rid of this. And I'm going to post this in. So this is a C# script here. And what it's basically saying is for every table name, what I want you to do is I want that to be my variable. And then within my result, I want you to evaluate the DAX and show me the top 20 rows of that table name and then output it into a little pop-up bar. So if I click on my summarized activities, I can press play and then you can see I've got a pop-up bar which allows me to see the top 20 rows of my summarized summarized activities table. So we're using C# scripting with some DAX. So it was one of the things that I find particularly useful in Tabular Editor 3 that isn't in Tabular Editor 2. You know, if you're trying to write a DAX measure and like, well, you know, what is it? Is it activity type? Is it spelled with a small y or a capital Y? And it allows you to do that. The other thing within Tabular Editor 2, which is the same within Tabular Editor 3, is best practice. So you'll see at the bottom here, I've got this best practice issues. And if I just click on it and show you what it is, it's a best practice analyzer. And what you're able to do in tools, if you click on best practice analyzer, you're able to set up using a URL, and I've got the URL here. So this is the best practice analyzer. So it gives you some information and it tells you the type of things that are connected, like basically, we shouldn't have many to many. We should use our objects. We should hide if we're connected to a date table using a fact table. We should hide the date in the fact table. So there's all sorts of best practice rules that Microsoft suggests would improve our semantic models. And so this has been produced in collaboration with Microsoft and Tabular Editor, and it uses use divide for division. Avoid using the if error, because that's going to go through and iterate through every column. Column references should be fully qualified. Measure references should not be qualified. You should only have one unique measure. You shouldn't have the same measures for one thing. So you're able to, within both Tabular Editor 2 and 3, you're able to actually ask it to look at your best practice issues. So this is one here. If I make it bigger, then you can see it's things like do not use floating data points for performance issues, is available in MDX, is set to false on non-attribute columns, minimize Power Query transformations, set descriptions, provide a format string for date. So there are different things that you can do that it picks up of different level of security. So here on this one, do not summarize numeric columns. Well, this is something that I find really annoying anyway. If I want to summarize my numeric columns, I put it in a measure. If I'm not summarizing it, it's because they're used as a dimension. So there's a little screwdriver up here. So if it's something that doesn't require any user input and it's just simply changing the format string, you can tell it to fix it, and it will go through and it will fix it for you. So hide the foreign keys. So it's okay, so these are my foreign keys, so hide them. And then it will go through and hide them. And then you can see, if we look at marathon training and date, the date key is hidden, so that our users won't use the date key in the marathon table. They'll only use it in the date table. So it's about trying to actually make it simpler for our users. Joseph's question was, what's an example of minimize Power Query transformations? So I don't use that, Joseph, because I don't want it to minimize my Power Query transformations, because quite often I have a lot of work in my Power Query transformations, but the general rule of thumb is to push as much of your queries and your transformations as upstream as possible. So the best practice is to get the transformations to happen in your database if possible, rather than in Power Query, because if you have a lot happening in Power Query, then that could slow down your modeling. So I prefer, I look and see, but quite often if I've got Power Query transformations, it's because I can't do it in my data source. So that's an example, but I can certainly show you. So if we have a look, so what it's doing is it's basically looking at the different partitions and just saying, is there query folding happening? Can you change it? Should it be here, or should it be in a database? But if mine's there, then it's there for a reason. So what you can do is say, yeah, okay, I've looked at it, but for this, I'm happy, and you can ignore it. So you can ignore it. Severity, Aurora, is low or high. Now, format string for measures, I would say, is pretty low. Yes, it looks nice, but it's not going to affect my model. So severity of 1. I'm not quite sure why a format string for date columns would be a 1 as opposed to a 3, but you can understand visible objects with no description, that would be a 1, because you can't do, you can't work without it. And relationship, but I've looked at the severity, and I've never quite understood what, why one would be a 1 and one would be a 3 for some of the things they pick out. For other things I can understand, but yeah, it's it leaves me to think about it at times. So that gives you an indication of what you can do for free with Tabular Editor 2. And it's quite a nice thing to start and to use it. But in a way, I think Tabular Editor 2 is a little bit more scary than Tabular Editor 3, because Tabular Editor 3 is a paid for model. Then it looks, it's much easier for you to use. There's a bit more of a user interface in it, whereas this one, you know, once you get started with it, it's okay to use, and to create your measures and to do some, you know, some basic modeling. But once you start saying, well, actually, I want to be able to do this and I can't quite do it in Tabular Editor 2, then it's probably time to start moving on to Tabular Editor 3. So any questions before I move on to Tabular Editor 3? Nope, all good. Okay, so this is Tabular Editor 2, so I'm just going to close that now. Are you sure you want to create? Yes, I am. So Tabular Editor 3 is here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in Tabular Editor 3 some of my favorite features, which you will have seen in Tabular Editor 2. But it makes it's a bit easier sometimes. And some of these things, like you can show dependencies in Tabular Editor 2. And I'm pretty sure you can do find and replace as well. So this is basically to remind me what I want to cover in Tabular Editor 3. So when we open up Tabular Editor 3, you can see it's very similar. We've got our tabular object model, we've got our expression editor, we've got our Tom Explorer up here, and we open it up and in the basic same way. So if we've got a connection or XMLA endpoint, which we might use from our service using PPU or Premium, then you can pop it in there. And it's just so quick to be able to manage your model using the XMLA endpoint. Or we can use, in the same way, our local Power BI report. And the authentication is integrated within the report. We can choose how we want to use it, whether it's read, write, and we can choose the status bar color, which can be quite useful if you're looking at several different reports and you're comparing. Then if you have different colors, and that can help you if you're looking at. And this is experimental Power BI features. So this is the bit where I've got the code, you know, the different features used. Tabular Editor 3 yearly account. Yes, you get at least 30 days free trial. So if you haven't used it before, so you can use it. And I think they then do 1 month. So you only can do 1 month. They're really, really good if you reach out and ask them for things. So in the same way that we had within Tabular Editor 2, we've got Tabular Editor 3, and you can see the menu bars. There's a lot more going on. So we've got the way that we can open and we can save back to our model. But up here, we have some different menus. We've got pivot tables that we can use. We can draw relationship diagrams. We can do C# scripting. We can do DAX query editing. So there's a lot that we can extra that we can do. We can open up DAX queries. We've got pivot grids, DAX scripting, new diagrams, and C# scripting. So it just makes it a lot easier to be able to use. And then over here, we've got our model with our tables. We've got our Tabular Object Model Explorer. We've got our Best Practice Analyzer. And we've got our Properties pane. And we've got messages. We've got our macros that we can have here. We can use Vertipack Analyzer, which will analyze our model for us. We can change our data refresh, and it gives us messages when you get things wrong, or it tries to help you, which is quite handy. So if I just go through a few of my features, and by all means ask questions or pop it in if you've got any. What I really love is that when I look at my text, so we've got if data sources here, if we were pulling it in, where we were pulling it from, if we've set up perspectives, we've got our relationships here. The great thing is, if you're looking, if I click on this, I've got a semantic model diagram, so I can bring in my date table, and then I can add all related tables. So it will show me all of my related tables, which is good for documentation. You can actually click on the tables and you can edit the relationships if you want to edit the relationships. and you can save that one. So no, don't want to save it. Any row level security would be set up here. These are our shared expressions. So this is our M, and you can see it's coming up here. So we can see our M code. And then, so that's our M code. But also, if you look at the partitions, the partition shows us what's actually used. So that the shared expression shows us the M code that isn't published to the model, whereas, and I think I've got this right, whereas this here will show us the M code of the tables that are published to the model, and they're different. There is a slight difference in the way that the tabular object model views them. So we've got our rows in date. So we can see our different rows that we've collected. We can delete. So here we can delete. So we can delete any of our measures. We can go to our summarized activities here, and you can see so what I can do is say, right, okay, just show me my measures. So instead of having to write the code, it will show me the measures, and I can go through, press delete, and just delete them all. If I've made a mistake, I can press Control Z or Control Z, and it will bring it back again for us. So I can do all sorts of things to our report. So this here is a new measure, so I can just delete it. I can duplicate it, which I think, goes back to your point, Joseph, earlier, the way that you can actually use one measure as a base measure and then duplicate it and copy it, which can be incredibly useful. And if I don't want to, I can delete it. So I've got here the number of rows in my summarized activities. So if I look at my table and I click on my table, I've clicked on preview data. So it's right here, and it's preview data. And you can see you've got all sorts of, unfortunately, I won't be able to go through all of it, but I can do all sorts of things. So if I click on preview data, you can see I've got the preview data here, and I've got 423 rows. Now, I might want to say, okay, well, show me, as we all know, I'm a bit obsessed with running, show me the running rows. So I've got 217. So I want to create a new measure. So my measure comes up here, and I'm going to call it running. And then I'm going to do calculate. See the way it's lovely IntelliSense. Hashtag rows. As I start typing, it gives me the rows. Then activity type. So I've got summarized activities, activity type. And I always think, oh God, was it spelled with a capital? How did I spell it? But I can see there, because I'm looking at this table, I can see what it is. So I'm able to visualize my data. And you can pull these tables out. So I can have these all over 3 or 4 screens. If I have them open, I can pull the windows out and put them. So I can have them on one screen. I can have my macros on another screen. I can have my pivot tables on another screen. So I've got everything about my semantic model in front of me so I can see it. And then I press save. So I've saved it, and it should be 217, but obviously I want to check. So there's a pivot grid. So when I click on the pivot grid, what I can do is I can pull my data in there. So I'm able to validate, and sometimes what I quite like is I just quite like having I'd normally have it on a different screen. I can check and I can see, well, that's correct. It's 217. So you can then, if you want to, and one of the things I always forget to do is take the filter off. I can select all, and there's this tiny little button up here where you can collapse all the models. So you can press it and collapse it, and then when you open up the tables again, you can see the tables. So I might just want to have week and year, and I can just drop the fields in here, and it gives me a lovely little pivot table. So you're able to check and validate all of your measures in your model without actually overwriting what's happening. So it then gives you this ability to be able to summarize, validate and check your measures against whatever data you have in your column. So that gives you that ability to be able to do that. So we're able to filter our columns, we're able to create our measures, we can duplicate, and we can, when we start then, so we could filter and say, right, okay, just show me, take the select tool, show me the measures, and press OK. And then you can actually then start to, if you select all of them, you can say there's the format string there. So you can actually say, right, well, what format string do I want it to be? And so if I just go in here, you can see there's the format string and the format, and there's a little drop down. So I could just say, well, just make them all whole number. And then when you look at the whole number here, then you can see whether you want to use parentheses, whether you want to use thousand separators. So you're thus able to change and to make batch changes to your measures. In the same way that we can use the pivot grid to check our data, we've got our C# scripting. So this goes back to our C# scripting here, where we can actually write our C# scripting. So if I pull this up, and we can do things like this in the same way as we had our count rows, what we can do is we can say, right, okay, well, what I want you to do is I want everything as a short date, as we did before, or for every measure, I want you to be able to format every measure and to pop it in the description. So we have this. If I just copy it, and we've got our C# script here, and we pop it in there. And so what this is doing is I don't even have to select, let's just select all. I don't have to select every measure. What I can do is I can just say, right, okay, for the model, so this is the model, for all measures, what I want you to do is to format the DAX. So it will go through and format all of the measures for us by pressing that C# script. So you press play, it executes the script, and then all of the measures in the tables. So if we look at our measures, you'll see that they will all be formatted correctly. Not that I've got too many in there to actually format, but it's a way that you can format all your measures. And what we might want to do is we might want to, some of the things that we always look at is to actually create a time description. So our time intelligence. And within here, so let's have a look. I've got, I can do previous year to date or previous year, or I've got our different measures that we can use to actually go through and run on our time intelligence. So here, if I just click off sum of average speed, and then I can click a macro, and you can see I've got various macros there, and you can see it's automatically created all of these different time intelligence for me, month over month, our month to day, our percentage variable, what the year over year percentage is, and they're all created like that for whichever measure that I might want to do. Because whilst we can use calculation groups, sometimes therefore, you don't necessarily always want a calculation group. Sometimes you just want the time intelligence, depending upon what it is you're working on. And you can see, so we've got the expression here, and it shows us what the time intelligence tools are that have been applied to one measure within seconds. And then we can press save. And then what we're able to do is every single object within the tabular object model allows us to see the different dependencies. So we can actually say show dependencies. So when you look at this dependencies, I'm just going to pop it here. So any objects that depends on this. So this is really good for actually understanding if you delete something, what's depending upon it, or what objects is it depending upon. So you can actually see what the average speed is, which measures is it depending upon, and what the sum of the speed is. So it gives you a really good insight into the actual structure of the measures within your model, and you're able to then format them and batch format them and batch rename them. So that's C# scripting with dependencies. But we also have our DAX scripting. So within here, we can click on this and we can say here, script DAX. And this will show us all of our DAX scripting. So we can pull it out, make it bigger. And you can see these are all the scripts that we have for these particular measures that we have within our report. So we can find and replace. So we could say, right, okay, sum of. Do I really want it to be called sum of? Or you might want to change something in one report that is, for business purposes. So you can actually say find sum of, and it would look, and you can say find all of them, or you can look for backslash or regular expressions, match case, the whole world, or you can do sum of and replace with nothing if you want to. And you can either go through and replace all of them, or you can say replace next, and then it will go through each of the particular ones, and you can see it's there, sum of, and do you want to replace it or not? So you can actually go through your DAX and decide if you want to change this, and then you can decide whether you want to synchronize it and send it back to your model, or you want to save it, and you can choose how you actually replace and change all of your measures. And what you can also do is you can here, I've not tried it, but you can actually batch rename children. So all of the children that are attached to this particular table, you can do sum of, and then replace with, I don't know, let's just call it X, and press OK. And then it will go through all of that and change them. So you don't even have to use the format query. You can batch rename objects within the parent model. And if you get it wrong, then you can press Ctrl-Z and you can go back. So we've covered DAX. Oh, we haven't covered DAX queries. So we can also use the DAX query. So if you've got a particular DAX query that you want to write, you can pull it in for Performance Analyzer, or you can write the DAX query itself and run it. There's also DAX Debugger, but I'm conscious I'm going to run out of time soon, so I don't want to go too far ahead. So here, if we've got our particular model, we could build a table, and we could then get the DAX query and pull it into our report and then run the report. So let me just check. Are there any questions before I go further?
None at this time, no, Sue.
Okay. Can you say tomatoes? Okay, brilliant. So no further questions. So let me just check what I've covered. Layout window, show dependencies, find and place, show data, follow, format, folders, pivot grid, macros, DAX queries, best practice analyzer. So in the same way that you can use Tabular Editor 2 to look at your model, you can use Tabular Editor 3 as well with the best practice analyzer. So if we click on the best practice analyzer, it's within the tools, and you click on Manage Best Practice Analyzer, and you find you can add, and it asks you the local rule from a URL, and then you go to the sites that I've got within the here, and it will give you the actual URL that you can add in, and you can add to your table. And then once you add that to your table, then in the same way it will go through, and just in a little bit more detail, it gives you the rules that you can apply. And for some people, you can specify your own rules. So you can say, well, that one doesn't work for me, or in this model I need to have this, and different organizations will have their own different rules. So it gives you the same objects within Tabular Editor 3. where you can say, right, okay, don't summarize. Yep, fix that one. Hide foreign keys. Yep, fix that one. Percentages should be formatted with thousand separators. Yes, click that one. Provide the format string for a date. Yes, click that one. Format string for measures. And so this one, you can see the actual screwdriver isn't highlighted. The reason it's not highlighted is because it can't decide it for you. It doesn't know what you want that formatting to be, so it can't automatically fix it. So you can either ignore it, or you can say go to the object, and it takes you to the object itself. So you can then decide, well, okay, the format string that I want for this particular object is I want it to be a whole number. So you can then set it as a whole number. And then I can save all of these back to my semantic model. So I'm very quickly making changes to the metadata that surrounds my particular model. And that takes you through the best practice analyzer. The other thing that you can do, which I find particularly useful, is you can set, in the same way that I said, you can actually pull the screens out and you can pop them, all of these can be moved out and placed wherever you want them to place. When I first started using it, I thought, well, I don't really understand, that's great, but I'm not quite sure when I would use this or how I would use this. But what you can do is, because there are so many different ways that you can actually use Tabular Editor to do different things. You might have a particular window for a particular set of functions that you're going to carry out. So I mentioned before that we have the DAX debugger, so we're able to debug our DAX. So you can have different views depending upon what you're going to do and how you're going to use your Tabular Editor. So one of the things that I find quite useful is if I'm trying to debug DAX, I can use, it hasn't come up for me yet, DAX debugging. So I can have my DAX that's why, because I haven't got anything debugging. I can actually use my debugging tool to come up and to allow me to debug something. So if I've got my pivot grid here, and I might think, well, that's a bit odd. Why is that number doing this? You can right click on it and you can click debug this value. And then your debugging tools come out where you can, let me just see if I can get this window back to that one. Here we go, that's a bit better. So we've got, no, it's not. So here, let me just pull it up for you. When you start debugging your model, and you go into the pivot grid and you click debug this value, you'll see it comes up with a DAX debugger. And that DAX debugger allows you to go through and to see what's happening with a particular measure. It allows you to step into that measure. Let's get rid of this table, and to see what's happening with this particular measure. So we can step into this by actually saying step into this selection, and then it starts to allow you to see what's happening within that selection. So if I start to step in, you can see it starts to step in, and what I'm looking for is I want to see, it usually comes up, let me just reset the window layout. It should allow you to, this is where you break something in your model. I've very kindly set up a DAX debugging window for you that is now not letting me pull in and show you. But you're able to step into the model and it brings up your call window, which allows you to see what's happening within your window. I find I've done something. Now, I can't see how I've managed to break that, but I have. Let's go back to our default layout. There we go. So there. You can see, 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 you debug this for you. It usually comes up with a call watch where you can go through and you can actually see what's happening, which is really very cool. But I seem to have in my window setting things up broken that, but that's me, not Tabular Editor. So you can start to go through and it will give you the different values, and it's got a call watch and a local watch and evaluation context. I'll work out and just work out what I've done and then show you how to do that and add that in. So we also have VanPUG Analyzer, so we can actually look at our model and we can say, okay, collect the stats on our particular model. So straight away it goes through into our model and it actually shows us the number of tables, it shows us the table size, if there's any relationship integrity violations, what the percentage of the database is, our columns, which are our biggest columns, what are the relationships between the columns, and if we've got any partitions, it will then show us. So it gives you the ability to be able to really understand in depth what's happening with your model. So I hope what I've been able to do is to, let me just quickly go through, show you pretty much the difference between Tabular Editor 2 and Tabular Editor 3, and to explain why I find it quite useful to be able to use it in my Power BI performance. A couple of questions. Will it improve DAX performance? It will help you get better at your DAX, which then should help you with the DAX performance. And if the DAX is slow, it's probably down to the way that your model is put together. So if you understand using Best Practice Analyzer how you've set up your model, if you set your model up more efficiently, then the DAX should be better. And if you have any, you can start to then examine and explore how your DAX is written. But I think for DAX performance, I would probably still use DAX Studio, where I look at my query and my storage timings to understand how that's working. Is DAX Debugger similar to Evaluate Formula in Excel? I don't use Evaluate Formula, but I expect so. And is there, Ken, you might be able to answer that one, because I'm not sure about, I don't use Evaluate Formula in Excel. And is VanPUG available in Tabular Editor 2? I don't think it is, but I will check. I'm pretty sure it's not. No. No, it's not. So are there any further questions so far? So we've covered most of the favorite features that I use and why I use it. So hopefully you now have an understanding of what Tabular Editor is, how much it will cost you, if anything. If you start using Tabular Editor 2, then it's completely free. Tabular Editor 3 is free for a month, and then it allows you to, to work out whether you want to use it, and you can start off with $10 a month. You understand the type of people that use it. It's something I think you get used to, and the more you almost make yourself use it, you then become a lot quicker, because it just then becomes second practice. There is an argument as to, do I have to use an external tool? But sometimes external tools like Monkey Tools, they just save you so much time. It's a no-brainer that you spend the money to allow your delivery to start up. Why? Because it saves time and actually helps you build better models. And then how you start, I'd start off with Tabular Editor 2 or jump in and start with Tabular Editor 3. There is a free training course, Tabular Editor Learn, which is brilliant. It's written by Kurt Buehler, who's now working for SQL BI, and it's a really, really good course, completely free. So you can work through that. That's my GitHub site. So the session resources are on here. I have got a nice little DAX debugging tool. I can't believe I can't get the cool watch and the local watch not to come up in the evaluation context. I'm like, why is that gone? Why is it not coming up? But that's me. That's not Tabular Editor.
Wouldn't be a demo without something going somewhat sideways, right?
I was playing with it before, Ken. I thought, oh, it's going to be really cool if I set up a DAX debugger and I can just show them. And it's like, why is that not coming up? So
that's unfortunate too, because I want to be able to answer the question that Aurora had about it. Is it similar to evaluate formula? And I mean, the one challenge with evaluate formula though is that it doesn't deal with arrays or multiple values, and that's what DAX actually does. So in context, I would say
see. Let me just see if I can pull it up, because I was playing with it, so it's like, really, hang on. So we'll just ping it up again while people chat and ask. But it's brilliant. DAX debugger. It's just so cool because it will step through your DAX one step at a time. So let's just have a go and see if I can get it to work.
Yeah, I would say that's actually one of the tools that I think Microsoft should have built. If they could get a good DAX debugger for allow people to step in step by step, would be fantastic. Yeah. So I'm actually kind of curious to see this work.
Okay, let's pick one that's so I really, really like, I'm not a programmer, so I like to make sure and have confidence that my things are working, because you can, I used to use Analyze with Excel all of the time because I'd build measures and then I want to see, how are they working? What numbers are they? Especially if you can get it without the evaluation context of BI, because if it's BI, any visual, any filters, it can just affect everything. So you want to know, well, okay, is my base measure okay? And is it then the filter context, the evaluation context that's having an issue? So if we just press save model, and then, why are you not coming in? So we've got something in there. There we go. So it's really silly. So you might look at that and think, well, what's going on there? So you can click on debug this fact. Here we go. There we go. This is my DAX debugging window that I'd set up. So within it, you can start to see, and you can start to see within my DAX debugger, I've asked it to look at this. So it's showing me this average speed. And within this average speed, I've got my evaluation context. So it'll show me, and let's just pull it to the side because I like to see. So I've got my pivot table here. And the filter context that we're looking at here is the week 17, 2023. And it shows me what the current expression is. And then it shows me how it's being worked out. So it's the sum of the average speed divided by, the average speed on the previous month to date. Should not be formatted as a currency, but we can change that. And then you can actually step into the selection and then work through it. So you can go through one step at a time. So this isn't a particularly complex one. And you can then take off the filter and say, well, what is that filter doing to it? And what's this? So you can start to actually look and see what's happening. And then you can actually start to then write DAX expressions based on the evaluation context of this particular row. So you can go through and work things out. So this one might be a better one to actually start looking at. So we can start to then go in and out. I'm not explaining it very well, but you can start to then go through one step at a time to understand what's happening. And we've got our call tree as well. So it'll take you through one particular measure as you go through it. So you can expand it and you can see how it's working and then what the sums are. So as you look at it, you should be able to then see how it's working.
Joseph just said, you mean I'm not forced to use my imagination?
No.
Yeah, exactly. No. Which is very much sometimes how it feels when you're going through this. Is like, okay, let's picture this.
Yeah.
But that's brilliant.
It goes through one step at a time and it gives you the results. So you can say, well, what is that and how is that? That is my call tree to my of my DAX measures. So it will come through here on your DAX, and you can actually, and so you can have this out and you can see how this is actually how it's built, what the row context is. And as you click on the row context, so that's the call tree, you can then see the evaluation context. So how it's working out and how it's actually doing it.
Very cool.
It is very cool.
So there you go, Aurora. Not quite. I mean, the purpose is similar to Excel's evaluate function, but I mean, that's always been the challenge with Excel is that it really doesn't deal with the multiple value scenario very well. Where obviously this does a lot better, which is nice. This is cool.
Yeah, it's worth. It really is worth just investing a bit of time to work through it, to understand. When you get something, you're like, why is it doing that? And then so you go through each step at a time, and you can see the results as you go through each step. You can see how it's changing, and var last date with that date, it's giving you these results, so you can see what the results are and how what the row context is and how it's actually. And then when you click on it, it'll take you to where it is and then show you the date. So the last date with the date, 25th of the 2nd. So it really takes you deep into the DAX measure when they're particularly, I don't like complicated DAX. So I like my model to be nice and straightforward so that my DAX is simple. When my DAX starts getting uber complicated, then I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy. Why is it so complicated? So I like my model. My model for me is everything. But if I do have to build complicated DAX, I need to understand at each point of the DAX measure exactly what it's doing, because to get the results. So being able to put it into a pivot table and then being able to debug it and then being able to take it through and to step through one step at a time. And as you step through, you can then see what is the result of this particular step within this particular DAX, and that just makes it a lot more complicated, a lot less complicated. But I do prefer my model to be simpler, so I don't have to do that.
100% agree. Absolutely. Yeah. There you go.
I think Matt Allington said it once. He said he's made his peace with DAX.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I like a nice clean model, makes the DAX easy, and then sometimes you have to do something that's a little bit more gnarly, but if you got the model right, it's generally much less need for it. So
yeah, absolutely, completely agree. I try not to do complex DAX because it's not nice.
Well, there you go.
Data modeling's much nicer.
All right. So do we have any other questions coming in on this? I see just a question about whether or not we've hosted a session previously on DAX Studio and VertiPack, and unfortunately, no, we haven't. We should try and find someone to do those for us. But I think that's about it for the questions. So Sue, thanks for coming in.
What was the answer from? I saw the thing that you posted about from Daniel in the Power Query.
Oh yeah, so I actually did have a conversation with Daniel about this back in September, because I get this constantly brought to me all the time as, Ken, why doesn't Monkey Tools work on Power BI? And so I've been watching for the ability to actually make changes to M Code Live. So what actually happens in behind the scenes, and Daniel explained this to me when he came through. He said, look, you can make changes to the M Code using this, but the Power BI model has to be restarted. And the reason for that is because the way that the Power BI team implemented this is that they actually have, when Power BI loads, they cache the M code into a separate partition. So any changes you make, it'll accept the change, but it won't apply it. And the engine actually sees the original cached version as the version of the truth. And this lines up exactly with my experience, where I can connect to Power BI model. I can send a new Power Query command to it. I can read that Power Query command back, confirming that it took it, but there's no way to apply it. And
Okay,
it's like,
perfect.
it's so frustrating. So yeah, so it looks like with Tabular Editor, you do have to save the file and reopen it. And that's one of the reasons I kind of looked at it. And I mean, for Monkey Tools that we haven't done it is because I find it very unsatisfying when your apply is, okay, now please wait 3 minutes while we restart your Power BI server. You know, it doesn't really work for me.
No.
But yeah. So yeah, so that was the story there.
Every day is a learning day.
Absolutely.
But yeah, because I can't remember who I was chatting to. It's about, I think it was Matthias and Henrik, that we were talking about, you know, the difference between the partitions, having the M code in the partitions and then having it in the shared expression, that they're treated as separate things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they make the decisions they do with some of these things. I mean, it frustrates me because as a third-party developer, I'm like, come on, just give me an apply button. Let me do it, right? But, you know, I don't know. I just work here.
So you do a fantastic job, Ken.
It's all good. Thank you. Anyway, thank you, Sue. This was a great presentation. Really appreciate you coming and doing this. And I know that you have to run. You've got an appointment coming up here, so we should wrap this up so that you can go to the pub and make everybody on the West Coast here jealous, because we've got hours until we can do that.
I know. I usually on my I was telling Ken before on my user group, we always finish at 7 so that I can go to yoga. But because it's 3, it's Thursday and I'm meeting a friend, so we're off to the pub instead. So it's no yoga tonight. It's actually
different kind of exercise.
A different kind of exercise.
There you
go. Karthik's just asked, what are the partitions? The partitions within this part is the actual M code that is building the table that's loaded into the model, which is treated differently in Tabular Editor. The loaded partition of M code is treated differently to the staging queries of the M code.
Yeah, you're getting into a very technical area of Power Query there, Karthik, which probably would warrant its own sort of entire session. Honestly, it's a bit to wrap your head around with what they do in those particular areas, and some of it's very fluid too. So, but yeah, fun times.
I'm just rather pleased I know the answer.
There you go. Geez. Awesome. Well, let's wrap this up, Sue, so you can get out to your appointment. I don't want you to be late for that. So, thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Joseph, again. And yeah, we'll catch you all at the next ones, folks. Remember, this will be up in the next 24 to 48 hours. I'll post on the Meetup site when the recording is live. And outside of that, don't forget to sign up for our next ones. Till next time, everyone. We'll see you then.
All right, take care, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ken. Bye.
You bet. Thank you.
Bye.